Alright guys, what's going on? It is Alexander Williamson here with The Secret History, living in your aquarium. It is a hot day. I'm going to take a reading just from the pavement. And that says 130 degrees Fahrenheit, 55 degrees Celsius. So I just wanted to kind of show you guys, I am not out in the middle of the woods. I am in the city. And just the difference between paved surfaces and that heat island effect is what it's called. The cities trap heat at an immense level. And if we take a sample of the ground here, off the pavement, 86 degrees or 30 degrees Celsius. And so pretty huge difference. And I just wanted to show you guys that I am not, by any means, I'm not out in the middle of nowhere. We're literally gonna flip this around and we're gonna head towards this pond. Sorry about that, just smashed my arm into the tree. Head into this drainage area. Now we are a good 18 miles if you were to follow the stream as it actually flows from where we caught stickleback, where Lawrence Kent and I were at when we caught the stickleback. But this is my actual neighborhood, walk here, and I have a whole bag of gear. I've got my TDS meter, temperature reading gear, obviously, my conductivity reader, pH, high pH, low pH range, nitrites, nitrates, ammonia, calcium, KH and GH, as well as a couple oddball ones for copper and other things in case we're curious. So we've been here before. I've taken you guys on a tour of this place before. But I just wanted to get some baseline readings. We are once again, in Seattle city limits here. And we are in an area that is the drainage for kind of this whole, probably 20 square miles, the whole northern half, and well north of the city, beyond city limits too. And you can see here where we are at environmentally. You can see tons of dragonflies laying their larvae or whatnot out there in the water, in those plants. Now what we've been looking for mostly are fish. We've seen a lack of fish, lots of turtles, crayfish, stuff like that, squirrels, where do you go? Squirrels, and big old tadpoles in here. But there have been reports for a long time of all sorts of different fish in here, stemming back to the 60s and 70s is the earliest I can find fishing reports. But basically this side is the side of the stream where the water comes in through the park, through a little creek called Thornton Creek. And it runs year round, but it gets pretty slow. In the next month or two here, it'll slow to a trickle. And then this meanders, like I said, 18 miles. And you can see there's solo cups, there's some pollution, there's, I'm sure, drainage from I-5, which is our main interstate, which is not even 400 yards to the east of here. So you can see yet again, though, that with all this horsetail growing and the hydrocotyl and pennyworts and things like that growing, the ivy, that this is a pretty moist environment as far as cattails over here, more horsetails. It's a pretty moist environment in terms of even outside of the lake, and the whole thing acts like a giant filtration system because this was a peat moss bog, which is a pretty rare thing. And you can check out my other videos to learn more about what that means exactly. But I wanted to show you guys the stream in which we'll be sampling the inflow And then we'll also be going to the far other side. You can see there's houses right here. To the far other side of the dual lake system here, or pond system, and measuring in the area that still has some ancestral peat moss that they dug all the way down to 120 feet deep in this quarry at one point before they flooded it back in the 1950s and 60s. And used it somewhat as a junkyard that they've cleaned up ever since then. But I wanted to show you guys the difference between the inflow water. We're going to take some samples of the water, bring it home and examine it under the microscope too, and then we're going to get some of the high tannic water that also you'll see is pretty intense with a higher pH, or I should say a lower pH, higher acidity, and probably a lower TDS than what's over here. But we'll see. We'll have to check it out and find out what the water parameters end up looking like. So let's just take a look real quick at what the creek flowing in here looks like. Right here, it's a nice looking little creek. You can see my shadow here. I've got my nets and my grabbing tong things, and yeah, it's just a nice little stream that meanders in here. There's gravel, there's sand, and then there's ducks at the mouth of the creek as well. So could it be used for spawning by local trout or fish? Definitely, but I have yet to see many in this section of the river, or creek rather. However, less than a mile away I have spotted them, so they are making a comeback, and that's what we're here to document, you guys. All right, so this is really good news. I just saw a perch or bass swimming in the shallows right past the ducks over here. We'll see if they'll come back around. It could be a sunfish too, hard to tell. But that is the first actual fish I've spotted in this lake. There are a whole bunch of, oh, they are fish there too, great. So we've got some fish going on right here too. Great news. I think the warm water has them out and about. The bugs and things, it's finally warmed up this year. It's been kind of a weird spring, but they are hanging out right in the shallows here. And even though I don't have a proper dip net, I literally have a kid's kit from Walmart or one of those type places. We're gonna try to get that, and then mostly we just want the water samples, and we'll come back with proper gear, dip nets and kit later this week, hopefully, where it's supposed to reach 100 degrees and the fish should be really lazy. They should be near the bottom, but the little ones should be near the bottom and the edge. So we should be able to kind of get at them, at least the warm water species. The trout and things like that will have headed for the hills, or rather divots and dips in the lake. But the sunfish, the bass, the perch, the carp, things like that, they don't have a problem kind of cruising and eating and nibbling on all the bugs that'll be active in the mud and muck of the shallows here, like we're seeing here. But they will hang out in the shadows, and that's for sure. So let's give it a go and see what we can see here. All right, so here we are at the bog slash pond right in the city. We've gotten some samples of water now, and I'm really encouraged to see some sort of fish in here. Now, what species is it? Not sure. It looks like maybe sunfish, bass, perch, something like that. It looks bigger than sticklebacks or crappie or anything like that, or crappie, as you may say other places. There's also some large invasive snails here. You can check those out. I don't know what they are. They look kind of similar to like an apple snail or something. But we're gonna stay away from the sunbeam here, and hopefully we can see that right where the drop-off is in the water, that's where the bigger fish are gonna be. And you can actually make out different depths in the lake. And there's milfoil, which is a myriophyllum species, as well as some algae starting, which I would presume is beginning now and will get worse as the season progresses as far as coverage goes. But right at the end of this branch here, there are a pretty good collection of fish. And let's see if we can try to capture some of their activity, maybe make out a profile. Now we're in, as I've said, Washington State, Seattle area. Let's try to get the sun on our side for capturing these images. And they're in this water, which is pretty tannic, and they're definitely eating water striders and little teeny bugs that are just coming to the surface. You can see here they're actually making quite a bit of activity. There's one right here. Let's see if we can catch its actual shadow for you guys, if you can make it out. There's a good size one right there, and it'll move in just a moment, I'm sure. There goes another one. It's hard to get the camera to focus with all the different shadows, but we'll definitely have to come back here and do some micro fishing. There we go. There's the, so that's a tadpole there, right to the left. That looks like a big old tadpole of a bullfrog. But then alongside it, I'm thinking perch or bass, yellow perch or bass or rock bass. Oh man, I'd love to have a casting net to just throw over there and nail all of everything that's right there. But you can see that they come into the shallows, and this is far more shallow than any of our aquariums are. This is very shallow water. Maybe 2 inches right at the side, and maybe 6 where they're all hanging out. And they're, I would, if I had to guess, I would say anywhere from 1.5 to 4 inches, the size range of them that are in this water here. And they seem to be hanging out right near those snags in the water. So definitely need to come back with good gear. We're gonna keep on moving and try to get to an area where perhaps we can actually make some progress on catching one. Maybe an area like this where it dips off a little more, or an area where I can get around a tree here. But we have our water samples and we've labeled them, so we can take those back to the house and check out what's in them. Just so you know, what we're seeing here is myriophyllum plants, so basically Eurasian milfoil probably. We're seeing a lot of dragonflies, which is food and also danger for the baby fry and fish that are in here. And then we're also seeing a lot of algae starting to grow at the tops of the water, and where we see hornwort, myriophyllum, elodia, and some sort of hygrophila, if I had to guess, that is growing all throughout this area, plus the immersed plants that you can see. So let's keep on meandering and see what we can see. Here we are at the far end of the native bog. Definitely some sort of perch, sunfish, bass, something like that. And somewhere in the half-foot range, something like 6 inches, 15 centimeters, all the way down to, looks like the size, they're all very still and lazy in the warm water, but it looks like there's also some that are a mere 2-3 inches, but it's some sort of larger fish. And then you'll see one even larger type of fish with a different body layout, more sleek, cruising the waters. And last time we came here, there were over half a dozen turtles on the logs, so we know that there's a pretty diverse environment here, and something's bubbling up right there. So I guess we should toss a water bottle in. Yeah, just throw it in and assume that it will magically send me Wi-Fi results of what is in the water. I would love to have one of those API test things that Rachel O'Leary has been prototype or trying out, alpha testing, beta testing, whatever it is she's doing now, whatever stage. But boy, I'd love to know what these natural native swamps and things are doing. So if you check out right there, that's I-5, the biggest interstate in the state of Washington. That's how close we are. Yet we've got this quiet little paradise that nobody really sees because there's houses all around it. It just looks like a clump of trees and that's it. But check out the density of fish. If we zoom in right in here, even there are a lot of whatever these fish are. Don't know for sure yet, but hopefully I'll find out something soon enough. We shall see. We shall see. Alright guys, so I just used some Hikari carnivore pellets that are sinking for just aquarium fish, and then I also used some of the Aquatic Arts sinking algae wafers for catfish and bottom feeders, and it definitely has attracted a whole bunch of either bass, perch, sunfish, something like that. Can't tell with the angle. They're just silhouettes and too small to make out any tail spangles or markings. Some are getting pretty close now though. I mean, the shore's right here, and trying to figure out what they are. Some are nice and close, only maybe and over 6 inches easily. I'm guessing a smallmouth bass or some sort of sunfish. And I also know for a fact that there's turtles and carp in here, so we will see. Also, there are bullfrog tadpoles that are huge, you know, good 4 or 5 inches long probably, with the giant heads. We can probably either catch some of those on film, or you've probably seen them, but they're invasive. But right there where I seeded the water, or chummed the water, I guess, as it were, they all came. So apparently these foods, Aquatic Arts and Hikari foods that I feed my normal fish, are working just fine for these fish. And so if we come back here to try to just examine some to see what they are, I guess probably a pretty good choice of bait to at least entice them in. So I'm interested to see, since we're now approaching 6 p.m., if the sun setting is what's causing the activity with the bugs coming out, as you can probably make out, or if we've got this sort of activity going on all day, but it's warmer conditions and has sped up the metabolism of all these little fish. But definitely one dip net into that area right there, and you would have a lot of answers for what fish are in this lake. So we're gonna have to get back here with a cast net or a dip net that's proper. Definitely makes all the difference. Mine is pretty useless. Wow, so here we are back at the mouth, the inflow of this whole pond system. And there's a culvert here where it comes from the other side of the freeway. And this has been running through the creeks and underground areas, and also just kind of puddles where things collect. And it's only 62 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 Celsius. And let's get out the TDS monitor. And again, I have samples of all this water, but there's something about just testing it on site. Sometimes it varies a little. Sometimes things settle out or cook and so forth. But interesting thing here is we're getting 123, which is actually way higher than the 80 or so. Anywhere from 40 to 80 that I was picking up in the area over by the boggy looking stuff, which did have more algae and plants. But I just find that really interesting. Let's try a little stagnant bit of this creek and see, like, if it's settled, if it's less. No, 130. And movement with all these plants to eat nitrates and everything. Still getting kind of the same thing going on. Interesting. So we'll really have to check out the nitrates, and ammonia. I have a feeling that will be the big difference maker. Let's see.